for the glory of old state, for her founder strong and great, for the future that we wait. Raise the song, raise the song.
Sing our love and loyalty.
Sing our hopes that bright and free.
Rest, O Mother dear, with thee.
All with thee, all with thee.
Where else would you rather be? I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association. Welcome to the People of Penn State podcast. Each week on the podcast, you can expect to hear the voices of Penn Staters talking about what they're passionate about, and you can expect to feel the pride and the power of the Penn State Network. The People of Penn State podcast can be found on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice. Subscribe and give us a rating. Ratings and reviews help others find these great stories about great Penn Staters. And when I think of great Penn Staters, I think about our next guest. Maddy Pryor is a social media specialist at Princeton University with experience in content creation, crisis communications, and community management. Before Princeton, Maddy worked at Penn State, where in addition to helping with the university's flagship accounts, she ran the Nittany Lions Twitter account. We're going to ask her definitely about that. She's also worked for similar public relations firms, the American Cancer Society, and Philly hoops site City of Basketball Love. In addition to her Penn State degree, Maddy holds a master's in PR from Kent State. She could hold an entire conversation using just GIFs and will live tweet about pretty much anything. She loves stand-up comedy, college basketball, and the New York Mets, which I give her a hard time about, even though I don't really like Major League Baseball. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Maddy Pryor to the People of Penn State podcast. Maddy Pryor, how are you today?
Hey, Paul, I'm great. How are you?
Good. We're already having a lot of fun here.
As per usual.
This is like the seventh take. I say, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Maddy Pryor to the People of Penn State podcast, as if there are ladies and gentlemen actually listening to this. But we have a great guest in store for you today. Maddy, let's start right at the very beginning, though. How did you become a Penn State Nittany Lion?
So when most people meet me, they think, oh, she must be like a family of like parents, grandparents, great-grandparents went. And that's very much not true. I'm the only person in my family who's gone to Penn State. And so really random, but when I was in high school, junior-ish going into senior year, my best friend, who was my maid of honor, Liz, she went to an AAU tournament in State College. I guess, they get to play the Bryce Jordan Center, which is really cool. And she got me a t-shirt and said, this place is really cool. You should check it out. Cause I had no idea where I wanted to go to school. And so I did, and it seemed really cool. And I applied and I got in, and I actually got in on Fun Weekend. I remember, which was really cool. And, one of my best friends growing up too, we went to different high schools, but we actually ended up applying to 6 of the same schools. And we both ended up at Penn State, which is really, it just blows my mind to this day. But yeah, I actually accepted before I stepped foot on campus, which my parents were a little weary of. But the second I stepped on campus, just like everyone else does, I just immediately fell in love with the place. Although I will say it was pouring rain that day. And I remember a few of the tour guides told us it never rains here. That's obviously not true. But it was a random happening. And it obviously turned out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made.
That's great. Word of mouth got Maddy Pryor to
and a free t-shirt.
Maddy Pryor, AAU basketball, had a free t-shirt. Yeah. That actually sounds a lot like your college experience. So free t-shirts and basketball.
Yeah.
We'll get into that in just a second.
Yeah.
But maybe we dive into that a little bit right now. As a student, you were very involved in a number of things on campus. What kept you busy outside of the classroom here at Penn State?
Sure. It may be easier to list the clubs I wasn't in. No. So I was really involved with Relay for Life, really involved with Coaches vs. Cancer, I wrote for Onward State for a little bit, and one of the things that I made friends with, people I'm still friends with to this day was Nittany Nation, which is now called Legion of Blue, which is the student section for the men's basketball team. We're just a rabid group of basketball fans who, we would get to the BJC when the doors would open and run to our front row seats. We had signs made for all the players. We had the big heads. We had, we got to be a part of like all the games and all that kind of stuff. And so it kept me very busy. What's crazy is my sophomore year, the team made it to the finals of the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis. And so I had just met some of these people that February. So this is my sophomore year. And a couple weeks after I met them at like a Nittany Nation meeting, they were like, we're getting ready to go to the Big Ten tournament. And I was like, this sounds like fun. I'll go. And I ended up going. There was only I think there was 15 of us, just piled into everybody's cars and drove overnight. At the time, people weren't expecting us to make it out of the first game. And we ended up making it to the finals. To this day, one of my favorite road trips I've ever taken. Again, made lifelong friends there. Even friends from other schools. A couple of folks from Ohio State I'm still really good friends with, because they would sit all the student sections around the top. And so we would, we would do chants with each other, and then they would come around. We all talk to each other. We did t-shirt swaps and all that kind of stuff. And so that was one of the coolest things I've ever done, was that road trip. And I'll never forget my senior year when we beat Michigan. I believe they were ranked number 5 at the time. Stormed the court. It was the coolest thing ever. I have really funny pictures with Nick Colella and DJ Nubo after that game. And to this day, I'm a huge Penn State hoops fan. I go to games when I can, and I'm watching every game if I'm not there in person, and just as enthused as I was as a student.
Maddy, as a student, you were also involved with Thon. Talk a little bit about how you got involved with that, and
Sure.
We'll talk in just a minute about how you continue to be involved.
Sure. So I actually was involved with Thon through Nittany Nation. And so, for those who don't know, a way to get involved with Thon is through student orgs. And sometimes student orgs are paired with families. Sometimes they kind of just go to Thon and fundraise throughout the year. And so, I believe it was my junior year, we were paired with a Four Diamonds family. We did canning at my parents' house here in New Jersey, which was amazing. All the time my mom asked, like, how are your canning friends? It's awesome. And so got really involved with that. And then once we were paired with the family, it sort of just changed everything, right? So, we were meeting with them. This is the Evan Kreider family. We were meeting with them and getting to hang out with them, Evan and his big brother Dylan, and parents Meredith and David, and really just got to know them really well. And it just, like I said, it sort of just changed sort of how I viewed Thon. It's just a really special thing. And I've always sort of been passionate when it comes to, fighting cancer, cancer awareness, that kind of thing. And this sort of just, I don't know what it is. It's just kind of cheesy, but it's like the magic of Thon, right? And so getting to meet them sort of just reinvigorated my passion for it. And so, so that's how I was involved, is through Nittany Nation. And, we were always doing fundraisers downtown at restaurants and that kind of thing, through Thon basketball, Thon hoops, and all that kind of stuff. And, we sort of became known as everyone in the Pressure Center during Thon weekend wears crazy neon colors. We were the only people wearing white because, you wear white to home games. That's the thing, right? So we were there. We had big heads of our dancers. I remember, I have a very vivid image of being on the floor in the men's basketball office area, cutting a big head of cutting her hair of one of our dancers around a big thing of cardboard. I that's how I got involved in Thon as a student, and I still keep in touch with our Thon family. I actually just saw Meredith a couple of weeks ago at a fundraiser she was hosting. So changed my life for the better.
So Maddy, we've talked Penn State basketball. We've talked a little Thon. I know you're a Penn State football fan. Did you actually go to class when you were here at Penn State? What did you come here to study? What was the initial career goal, and how did that change over time?
Sure. I went to many classes, not all of them, but many. So it's funny, actually. I started out wanting to do physical therapy for athletes. I got this grandiose dream of being like the PT person for the Mets, right? Or any pro team at that point. So um, I what's important is I'm really bad at chemistry, and I know the last guest had the sort of same issue, sort of medicine in mind, right? And I remember saying to myself, all right, I'm just going to start with Chem 101. I'm going to sit in the front of the class every day. I'm going to, go to tutor sessions, whatever I need to do, because I really want to do this. 2 weeks, no joke, 2 weeks into my freshman year, I called my mom and I said, I'm changing my major. And my parents are the best. They were like, we don't care. Like, do what you want to do what you're passionate about, do what makes you happy. Don't make yourself miserable. So got out of there, got out of chemistry. And the way I like to tell this story is for those who have watched Friends, there's an episode where Chandler wants to change his career and Monica makes like a file folder of all these different ideas. And the first one she picks is advertising. That's essentially what I did. I went on the list of because I was like lost. I was like, well, this was my dream, and now I have no idea. So I went to psu.edu, went on the list of majors, and the first one was ad/PR. And I said, you know what? People have told me I'm creative, I'm imaginative. Clearly, I like to talk a lot, and so I thought, let's try advertising and see how it goes. And so for those who don't know, the way it works at the Belisario College is it's ad/public relations. So both are sort of on your degree, but you sort of pick a track. And so I started with advertising. Wasn't really for me, so I went with public relations. So again, I like to talk, so that helped a lot. But I think the biggest thing for me was I cannot remember if it was my freshman year or my sophomore year, which is embarrassing, but either freshman or sophomore spring, I took Com 110 with Professor Olavsky. And I thought it was interesting. It was something like politics in the media or, something interesting like that. So I said, I'll just, see I have no idea what I want to do within this major. So let me just try it out. And what ended up happening was it was a Tuesday, Thursday. And every Tuesday we would have some topic, reading and all that kind of stuff. And then Thursday, what he would do is put a Twitter hashtag that we were all tweeting at on the projector screen. And it just like blew my mind. I thought it was the coolest thing ever that, first of all, we're getting graded to tweet in class. Amazing. You get to see what all these different people are thinking at once, which is really cool. And then we really got into what I think is the most fascinating thing is sort of like this notion of what Professor Lasky called keyboard courage, which is like, are you using your real name? Are you using your real profile? Are you talking the way you might talk if you were talking in person? And I just found it absolutely fascinating. It made me totally fall in love with social media. That's sort of how I started getting into social media.
All right, a lot packed into that answer. You have a lot in common with my daughters. My youngest just dropped chemistry, so really proud of her. And my middle daughter is an ad and PR major too, probably going down a similar path as you. This is the People of Penn State podcast. I'm Paul Clifford. Today I'm joined by Maddy Pryor. She is a social media guru right now working at Princeton University. So Maddy, let's stay with your time at Penn State. You were here during a time of great turmoil, especially if you're a Penn State athletics fan. Things going on campus in terms of student activism around all of that. Talk a little bit about your involvement and kind of the impression that being a student at Penn State has left on you because of the time you were here.
Sure, that's a great question. So, as you mentioned, turmoil is a really good way to put it. We were getting just bombarded with all kinds of stuff from all kinds of different directions. First it started sort of internally. And then once the sort of story started to unfold, it really became an external thing. And so what I mean by that is, speaking of social media, we were getting bombarded with tweets and just, nasty things that people were saying and all that kind of stuff. So at the most base level, I learned to sort of like let stuff, just slide off and not really care, what certain people had to say, as it relates to social media. Speaking of keyboard courage, especially if, they don't have a profile picture, that's another discussion. what it really taught me, all of it, was just that Penn Staters really know how to come together when there's a crisis. We came together within a week, and folks, they had a huge fundraiser to buy those blue T-shirts for victims of sexual violence. That happened in like not even a week; it was like 3 days, and the entire stadium was wearing blue, and they're all wearing it for one reason. And that was something really special. I think, again, like this whole thing happened, years and years and years ago, right? And so the people on campus, like we didn't know what to do. It wasn't really anything we could have done. Some of us weren't alive when these things occurred. So it was just a strange time. But again, I think people came together, and really showed some resiliency towards a lot of people who just, were saying things that were not true, frankly, and were sort of just trying to find someone to beat up, whether online or that kind of thing. And so, it was a crazy time. It's something I'll never forget, just because I'll never forget walking to class and having like 50 news trucks just as I'm walking to class. I got interviewed in some classes. I was in the Joe Paterno and the media class taught by Mike Poorman, which at the beginning of the semester, as I had been taught, previously, was just sort of how he sort of how he was portrayed in the media and how he dealt with the media from the beginning of his career, towards the present. And then obviously it took a turn when the news broke. And so it started becoming like a class that people wanted to be in. So we would have strangers come and sit in the class, which was just fascinating. And, we had special guests, we had people from ESPN coming in that weren't scheduled earlier in the year, that kind of thing. And it was sort of like learning about crisis comms, like in the moment. And I think that's kind of why I like what I do now is I sort of learned about a lot of crisis comms, not on purpose, through my time at Penn State. But yeah, so long story short, I think it really showed how Penn Staters, we come together, we stick to each other. We know how to come together when we need to.
Yeah, Maddy, it sounds like you were learning like the textbook stuff in the classroom and then getting a master class on public relations outside of the classroom during that time here at Penn State.
1,000%. Yeah. And I really crisis comms is actually like my favorite. People think I'm insane for saying this. The crisis comms is like my favorite part of the job, because there's always something to learn from it. I know that's kind of cheesy, but there's crises all the time happening, particularly in higher education or about many different industries. And so getting a higher education crisis comms, like you're saying, like boots on the ground, sort of in my face, sort of prepared me. Yeah.
So you graduate from Penn State, and while you do leave Happy Valley for a little while, it's like you never left. You continue to give back to Penn State in a number of different ways. You got active with DMAIG. I know you're active now with the Belisario Alumni Council. What is it about wanting to stay involved and continue to give back to Penn State in the numerous ways that you do?
Oh, I mean, it's just the best place. Everyone here is probably so sick of how much I talk about it. It just gave me so much. It gave me my closest friends. It gave me obviously a stellar education. It gave me so many wonderful experiences. It gave me some heartbreak too, like we were just talking about, right? It gave me some tough times, but it really is just the best place on the planet. You go back and, whether you're sitting at the waffle shop or, I'm at a game at the Bryce Jordan Center or whatever it is, you just like feel like home. And I know that's so cheesy, but it'll always feel that way to me.
Yeah. Speaking of heartbreak, you and I shared a heartbreak, having to speak at a social media conference together
Yes.
and miss the NIT championship against Utah, right? Was it Utah or Mississippi State? I think we beat Utah in the championship that year. I wouldn't know because I wasn't in Madison Square Garden, because we were at the conference together that I believe
never live
your
it down.
office was sponsoring. So, so we know a little bit about heartbreak there.
Yes. This is
Maddy, speaking of working in social media, right?
Yeah.
You came back to Penn State. You started to manage some of the flagship accounts that we have here, which is great. I don't really want to talk about that though. What I want to talk about is, how did you become the Penn State Nittany Lion?
Oh man, it was the fun. I will never have a better job. I just 100%. Like, so when I started, I at the time the person running it was Bill Zimmerman, and he did such a wonderful job. So clever, just coming up with things like a lot of puns. He would say like fraternity, like to talk about like the mascot, just like environment.
Right.
He also helped Nittany Lion get into the Mascot Hall of Fame. He led a campaign doing that. And so when I joined the team, I was like, how can I help? It was just like, and he knew I was like super into, Penn State sports and that kind of thing. And so eventually he rolled off. He's now a professor in the college of Bellstar College. And so I had the reins for the Nittany Lion Twitter account. And I was like, what am I going to do? And it was so fun at the time. Zach was the lion. He was such a fabulous lion. He was so like ready and willing and able to do any fun stuff that we had. Right. And so I met with him a couple of times, a couple of different projects, but really it was like, okay, how do we make this sort of more engaged with students? How do we make it so that like people want to be tweeted at by the Nittany Lion, which is an insane sentence. But it was a lot of like GIFs. GIFs were like the biggest thing in the world at that time. This is like 2016, 2017. And so a lot of cat GIFs, and I'm also a cat person. So it was a lot of finding like cats looking excited and saying like, who's excited for the game this weekend? That kind of silly thing. But the other really fun part was trash talking other mascots. A lot of I would say the Nittany Lion still has the best mascot Twitter account. I'm just going to say it right there. But I remember very specifically the Big Ten tournament was in New York for the first time. And so all the mascots, they did a whole photo shoot at the Empire State Building. They're all like doing silly stuff in like 7th Ave, like whatever, except Brutus Buckeye was not there. And I thought, that's kind of weird. What can we do about that from the Nittany Lion Twitter account? And so I think we tweeted something about the whole group picture and said like, missing you, blah, 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 something about Brutus. And he came back and said something about how he was too busy at the, what do you call it? Not draft day, but like where they come scout the players.
Oh, the combine.
Combine, thank you. He was like too busy at the combine meet. Except the GIF that they did with it was like incredibly grainy. Like you could barely even tell what it was. And it was Brutus like doing lifting weights. And so I responded and said, did you record this GIF with a potato? And it like blew up, like hundreds of retweets. Like everybody was like, oh my God, the Nittany Lion's talking trash. Like it went really great. So very silly stuff, but very fun, very engaging. Who doesn't love the Nittany Lion?
Sure.
And so to sort of be the voice of the voiceless Nittany Lion was one of the absolute like most fun things I'll ever do. It was so fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely gave voice to an already kind of comical and silly character here in Happy Valley. It gave some personality to that. I'm keeping score here, by the way, Maddy. Not that we play any kind of games around the podcast. You've mentioned cats. You've mentioned friends, right? Yeah. It's almost like you're low key trying to trigger me. I see the Gotham FC in the background there. I'm a Portland Thorns fan, so yeah.
You had to mention the NIT, so I had to put all my stuff
out. Maddy, a lot of people listening may be interested in getting involved in a career in social media. Talk a little bit about what it takes to be successful in the social media world, especially in higher education, which is much different than maybe running a corporate account or individual personality on social media.
Sure. So, the two biggest things I'll say is one is consistency. So say you're like, okay, I'm going to start an Instagram for either, my business, or I'm going to become an influencer or whatever it is. You have to be posting all the time. It does take time to do that. A lot of people think, oh, they're on Instagram, it takes them 2 seconds to make that and they make $1 bazillion. That's not true. It takes a really long time to build an audience, to create really good content, to be engaging with other people. So I could go on, but I'll just say consistency is huge. And the other thing is, this is a really cheesy line that I think I came up with at a social media conference before I was working at Penn State. Well, it was at Penn State. Something really important is posting with a purpose. You should have goals. You shouldn't just be posting to post. So, yes, consistency is important. You should be posting every single day, depending on the channel, multiple times a day. But you shouldn't be posting just because of that rule, if that makes sense. And so, that's the biggest thing I tell people is post with a purpose. Is it what goal is this accomplishing? Is it bringing you new audience members? Is it bringing you engagement? Is it making you look, like you care about something? So there's got to be a reason for doing it. So those are the two big things that I usually tell people. And then, sort of just on the less like technical side, I guess, is really having a thick skin, particularly in higher ed. It's people are sort of always looking for someone to blame, both internally and externally. Like your let's say like your students, faculty, staff, but then also just like people who know about your school. Maybe it's people in your town, your state, whoever. So you really have to have a thick skin and not take stuff personally, which is really hard. It took me a very long time to do it. And every once in a while, sometimes there'll be like a really just like tough Instagram DM, and it'll shut you down for a little bit. But you really have to know that these people aren't like directing their anger at you specifically. And again, it's really hard to do, but it's really important is to sort of like I said earlier, let's just like roll off, slide off, because it's not really being directed at you personally. And so the other thing I would say too is let's say you're just starting from scratch and like just want to do something in social media. You have to be passionate about it, because if you're not passionate about it, it will show. When I first started at Princeton, I was worried. I was like, well, I don't know how passionate am I about Princeton. Now I'm extremely passionate about Princeton. Like you see, I got my towel over here. I'm at like every women's basketball game here. I'm tweeting. I love this place too. And so it's just something, you have to find what you're passionate about before you really pursue something in social.
That's awesome. Maddy, I want to talk a little bit about or give you the opportunity to talk about how people can get involved with DMAIG if they're passionate about thon.
Sure, thanks. So DMAIG is the Dance Marathon Alumni Interest Group. I know it's a mouthful, so you can just call us Thon Alumni. But yeah, so right now there's a group of about 15 board members, and we meet once a month. We meet during Thon, obviously, and sometimes in person throughout the year. And we really are just a really passionate group of folks who are trying to help Thon in any way that we can. Our mission is really about helping the students in their mission too with Thon. And so we are sort of we're obviously the alumni arm of Thon, but we're really looking for people who want to get involved. And there's a million ways to get involved. One is you can actually dance in Thon as an alum. A lot of people don't know that. We've had all kinds of alumni come in and dance. There's no age limit. There's no, as long as you graduated from Penn State, that's really it. That's really the only requirement. And then other than that, we have some fundraising minimums and that kind of thing. So that's really exciting. That's actually how I got involved with DMAIG. Is I tried to dance as an alum. And then I found out about this wonderful group. So that's one. Another one is we have an event every year called Hope from Coast to Coast, which consists of a 46-day, obviously for 46 hours of fun, exercise challenge, and then actually a close to half marathon in State College on Thon weekend. So it's 13.5 miles, and to represent the 135 miles between the Bryce Jordan Center and Penn State Hershey. And so if you go to dmaig.org or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, all kinds of information about Hope from Coast to Coast going on right now. We'll be doing a really big push after the holidays. And the other way to get involved is become a board member, which will have applications coming out this spring. And yeah, like I said, we meet once a month and we really just talk about what everybody's, we have updates and that kind of thing. And then we kind of just get to talk about like why everyone's doing this. It's really wonderful. Like we get to work with the students really closely right now. We're working with Anna, this alumni relations director with Thon, and she's just a wonderful human being. Like she's so kind and generous with her time and her effort. And we're just so happy to be working with her. We've done things like we have an endowment of the Alumni Association, which is really just like it's like can't even imagine, just such a wonderful project. I can't believe we got to do. And the point of that is to really help again with the Thon Alumni Relations Committee with sort of any ad hoc projects that they really want to get going. And we have a Remembrance Garden at the Arboretum, which will be up and running for Thon this year. So just really for folks to sort of sit and remember those we've lost to pediatric cancer. And so we've got some really just incredible initiatives going on. And so again, you can also email me at vp@dmaig.org. Questions, comments, concerns. We're always happy to have volunteers come through.
You mentioned your attempt to dance. And there's, one of my, I have a lot of favorite Maddy Pryor stories, right?
Oh boy.
Down at the Big Ten championship. But this is one of my favorite, and I hope you'll share, as you were trying to dance as an alumna, you were able to kind of marry your passion for Thon to your passion with men's basketball, and actually brought you closer connection to, at the time, our head coach, Patrick Chambers. Would you mind sharing that story?
Sure. It was really, it's so funny. Yeah, I mean, so Pat Chambers was one of my, really good. I consider him like almost like a family friend at this point. We just really got to know each other while he was head coach. He started about a year or two after I was at Penn State. And so because I was so involved in the Nittany Nation, that kind of thing. And so I had just graduated. And so I was really just sending around like, those donor emails, just, our modernized Thon envelopes, just saying like, hey, I'm trying to dance in Thon, if you have $10, to donate to our whatever, to donate to our fundraising, we would love, that would be so, it means so much to us. I don't want to say the number, but he donated way more than I was expecting. I was expecting, I don't know, $50. And he donated a number that to this day sort of like makes me well up, because I could tell he was so passionate. He still is, I'm sure to this day, passionate about Thon. And he knew it meant so much to me, and obviously it did. And how much, I love Penn State basketball and Thon. And it was just like this wonderful sort of just, like you said, like marriage of everything coming together. And right. To this day, it's one of the most meaningful things that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, without giving the number away, as Maddy said, most of the gifts that come in from the Thon envelopes, if you will, are $50, $100, right? 2- and 3-figure gifts. This was beyond that, which is extraordinary.
Yeah. Like I said, it even right now, I'm a little verklempt about it. It was very meaningful to me.
Well, I'll let you compose yourself while I tell a story that I think you will enjoy. It speaks to the quality of the people that we have here at Penn State, especially our coaches in intercollegiate athletics. So I know you're a big fan still of Penn State basketball. You remember a couple weeks ago, we were down in Clemson and lost a heartbreaker in double overtime. Moments after the game, probably no less than 60 minutes after the game. That game was on Tuesday. It was on Giving Tuesday. No fewer than 60 minutes after the game, Micah Shrewsbury, probably sitting at an airport in South Carolina somewhere, went online and made a Giving Tuesday gift. And so I think it, just a heartbreaking loss earlier in the day. I think it speaks to the quality of the people that we have here. So I've been telling anyone who will listen that story, because I just think it's a guy who has a lot of things in perspective. He cares about a lot more than just basketball. He cares about Penn State.
I totally get that from him. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Coach Shrewsbury yet, but I have just heard so many wonderful things. You can see his passion, through press conferences. That doesn't necessarily always come through. But for him, it's like you can tell he cares about being here. I think he's someone really special. He talks so highly of this team. And again, like I said, that doesn't always happen. But I feel like he takes every opportunity to lift up his guys, and I think that just goes to show how good of a guy he is.
This is the People of Penn State podcast. I'm Paul Clifford. I'm joined by my friend Maddy Pryor. She is a social media specialist at Princeton University. Maddy, we like to have a little bit of fun here at the end of the podcast. And so I want to throw some lightning round quick hitter questions at you and
sounds good.
See what your thoughts are. So first one, your favorite class at Penn State?
Other than the Com 110 where it changed my life, Crisis Comms with Steve Manuel forever.
Excellent. Shout out to Steve Manuel, the longtime photographer of the Football Letter. Members can catch his great photography on Mondays after our football games. What was your favorite Penn State basketball experience?
That's rude. Oh no, it's supposed to be a lightning round. I have to say, other than the Big Ten tournament, beating Michigan on senior night. That was, I lost a shoe.
All right. That's awesome. Same question, different topic. What is your Penn State Thon moment?
Ooh. Oh boy. I can't recall which year it was. I want to say it was my senior year. So 2013. And obviously they all flipped the numbers up at the end to show the total. And that year we had gone from the year previous, we had gone from 10 million something to 12 million something. And obviously it's not all about the money, right? But I will never forget my friend Anna Unger, now she's Anna Summers, screamed, "We skipped 11." Just kept saying, "We skipped 11, we skipped 11, we skipped 11." And we're all sobbing, like, we skipped 11. And that's something I'll never forget. I have many more fond memories. I could talk about them for an hour, but that one sticks out quite.
That's awesome. You should get that loudly on a t-shirt.
I should, yeah.
and on the back, just put, "For those who know."
Yeah.
Maddy, what is your most unusual "we are" moment, right? Where either you saw Penn Stater and you yelled "we are," or they saw you and it caught you by surprise?
I don't know if it's unusual, but just yesterday I had a really weird one, like a weird coincidence one. So
weird coincidence, not weird, awkward.
Right. Yes. Mine are always awkward. So we were, my husband and I were fellow Penn Stater. We're flying back from Fort Lauderdale to Newark, and he was wearing a Penn State shirt. And one of the flight crew said, "Oh, we are, Penn State." We're like, "Oh, great, da 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 da." And then just mentioned like, "Oh yeah, we'll go to the Rose Bowl," because we had just purchased our tickets earlier that day. And he said, "I'll be there too." And he said, "Let's throw with you. It's what we got." Right? I was like, "Oh, that's awesome. Okay." So that was great. Flight was great. Whatever. We land. On the way out, we find not only is this guy Penn Stater and he's going to the Rose Bowl game, he's on the flight crew that is flying the team out.
Oh, that's amazing.
Like, how weird is that? From Fort Lauderdale to Newark, and he's flying with it just was so weird and cool. We were like, can we get a seat? But it was just like weird happenstance. That was really, really cool.
That's awesome. How about your favorite Penn State sport?
It's men's basketball.
And your favorite flavor of creamery ice cream?
Ooh, I'm going to give you two because that's just not fair.
Just so we don't mix them.
Yeah, well, these two wouldn't be good anyway. Grilled sticky and blue raspberry. I actually worked at the creamery for a short time my sophomore year, and I would make myself a blue raspberry milkshake every day I left. the best.
That is awesome. Maddy, we want to thank you for coming on the People of Penn State podcast and allowing us to share your story. It's great to catch up with you, and continued success for you in your career.
This was so fun. Thanks, Paul.
All right, we will see you soon. I want to thank you all for tuning into the podcast and for listening to the People of Penn State. Shout out to our producer who makes this all happen, Vincent Langaro. If you like this episode, I hope that you will subscribe to the People of Penn State podcast on your favorite podcast app of choice. And while you're out there, go ahead and give us a rating and drop us a review. Help us spread the word. Share the podcast with your fellow Penn State friends. And when you do, make sure you tag the Alumni Association on whatever social media channel that you choose to share the podcast on. If you're a member of the Penn State Alumni Association, thank you for your support. And if you're not, what are you waiting for? Go to our website at alumni.psu.edu, and you too can become a member of the world's largest alumni association. Thank you for listening and for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are.
When we stood at childhood's gate, shapeless in the hands of fate, thou didst mold us, dear old state, dear old state, dear old state. May no act of ours bring shame to one heart that loves thy name. May our lives but swell thy fame, dear old state, dear old state.